Hello, my name is Matt Doyle. I'm a UK-based author and occasional voice actor, and I'm here today to talk to you about my book, AILUROS. So, AILUROS was published in 2021 by Fractured Mirror Publishing. It's probably my favourite thing that I've written. It's the hardest to market because it's a very strange book in many ways. I had a lot of inspiration from Mark C. Danielewski's House of Leaves, which give you an idea of what to expect with this. The print edition and the ebook versions are slightly different in terms of layout, which I'll show you here. In the print edition, you can see the left-hand pages are notes, whereas the right-hand pages are a mix of audio transcript and, there we go, regular prose. The blurb is written very stylized as well. As you can see here, written a little bit like computer programming, with begin AILUROS. In the present/future, Alex and Josh must face their own /A monster if they are to salvage their relationship /AILUROS Unit 23. These are not separate stories. The ebook version, you have the right-hand pages as the main text, and the notes pages are clickable pop-up endnotes, because to make it a little bit easier to follow in that format. In terms of what the book is about, it does depend how you want to read it. You can just read the right-hand or main pages, and what you will get is a far future sci-fi horror story, which is kind of a queer homage to Alien. It's about a group of salvagers led by a couple, Alex and Josh, who they visit an abandoned microgravity holiday unit, kind of like a microgravity Ibiza, and they encounter a hostile alien life form that they are not equipped to handle, and things go very, very wrong for them. In the left-hand pages, or the pop-up endnotes, you learn that the Ibiza story is actually a VR sim, and what's happening is the government has a crime reduction system in place where they inoculate you every month against specified negative emotional responses. So if you're prone to a lot of anger, they'll suppress your anger. If you're prone to jealousy, they'll suppress your jealousy. Then at the end of the month, you let this all out in a real-time VR sim, and that's studied to decide whether you might have committed a crime at some point during the month, or if you are likely to commit a crime. In this instance, Alex is the one member of the couple that tends to go through the process due to some health issues stopping Josh from doing so, but Alex thinks Josh might be cheating on them. So what Alex has done is drug Josh's tea and put him in the VR sim. And is now trying to interpret it along with a friend who's a little bit more capable of doing the psychological analysis, to try and figure out whether Josh did cheat on them or whether the relationship can be salvaged. There's a lot of things in the book that's, you know, I talk a lot about personal identity. I talk about the concept of giving government too much power over, you know, what you're thinking and feeling, and this idea that those in power could decide that you're a criminal, even though you haven't technically committed a crime yet, which is unfortunately very timely with the way things are in the world at the moment. But it is a book that I wanted to write it in a way that if you just wanted a fun sci-fi horror story, you can just read the right-hand pages and just take it as that, because it is written to be that. It's when you start reading the notes as well that you kind of get more meaning in how the book is. I mean, there is still some meaning in the sci-fi horror story section as well, but it's more overt in how things play out in the notes. As you can imagine, it's a very hard book to actually do a proper reading for because of that layout. So what you're going to see in a moment is the screen's going to split into three. So you'll have the main text, and then you'll have a box for Alex's notes and a box for the notes of the friend that's helping Alex out. And I'm going to set them up so that you get them at the relevant points so you can see how the story interacts. So, let's begin. File name, Recording 9, AILUROS Unit 23, Living Quarters 1C and 1D. Alex snatched a tablet out of the air and turned it over in their hand, checking the make and model. They batted a free-floating pillow to the side and noted the item on the shared salvage list on their wrist display. Looks like some of the locks and magnets are failing, they said. Note everything you spot, even if it's small and not worth much. Ships the size of the Orca have a good amount of storage boxes, but it's still worth knowing exactly how much space we need. Kevin grabbed a watch and replied, And we want to be able to prioritize the items, right? Like, if we can only carry so much, we need to know what's where and what's more worth taking. Exactly. You'd be surprised what personal experience can do too. When we compare the list before getting the storage boxes on board, it may be that something you or I think is low value may actually be high value. Case in point, when we hit the medical bay, most people won't know what they're looking at with the drugs on board. You often find salvagers either taking it all or leaving it all. Me, I've got a good idea which ones will be worth more in resale. Is that something you picked up working with your dad? He's in pharmaceuticals, isn't he? This fits the narrative, I suppose, but in reality I do have some minor medical knowledge. Only when it comes to the treatment of dead bodies, mind you, but it's there. That's down to me, not my parents, though. Alex smiled. You've been researching. Well, I'd like to know who I'm working with. I only asked around a little, though. The subject appears to have a need for duality in his waking dream. Aaron and Lucy are the id and ego, which are commonly paired up. Josh and Alex are obviously representations of the subject and his partner, though potentially not literally. It may be that Alex, for example, is more of a representation of how he sees them in relation to his life. Rob and Alice represent both sides of the superego. Mark and Sarah are the duo tasked with making sense of things. Stuart and Kevin, meanwhile, are his attempts to fix past mistakes. Stuart is moving forward, and Kevin is seeking to simply understand them. Duality makes sense. Do you remember what you said to me when I asked you what you fear the most? You said being alone. You aren't built to be on your own. You need to be in a pair. That's why I keep trying, you said. I didn't know you felt like it was selfish to feel that way, but honestly, Josh, most of us are like that. We're a social species, and the more we struggle, the more we feel the need for the comfort of others. So don't feel bad about wanting to be with someone. And I bet the answers you got weren't entirely positive. No. Kevin paused, then asked, is it true that you don't really need to be here because you run 2 companies? Alex gave a short, gentle laugh and turned to look at Kevin. I thought that may be coming. No, though, it's not. I'm listed as a director, yes, because my father needed the positions filled. He runs it all, though. I only step in when I'm absolutely needed. Salvaging is my only steady income. So your dad doesn't even pay you? Kevin grimaced. That's cruel. Not really. Have you ever met a genuinely rich person? Kevin shook his head, and Alex continued. If you trace it back far enough, rich families all had a point where they weren't rich. Problem is, when they lived with money for a long enough time, some forget that and start to think that they're above everyone else. They appreciate others who were born into money like they were because they're the same. If someone finds a way to come into money, though, they're interlopers. Alex signalled them to move on, and the pair made their way to the next unlocked room while they continued their story. My family wasn't poor, but we didn't have more than we needed. Then my father got lucky, a couple of good business decisions, and he was able to open his own companies and build a portfolio of decent clients. Things were fine for a little while, but soon enough the nastier end of the born rich crowd realised where we came from. Well, what did they do? Sabotaged my father's business deals, upped prices for important stocks, made competing offers for clients, even if it meant making a loss themselves, but that was the point. They could lose some sales and cut deals that left them short, and their bank accounts would just swallow it. They wanted us to know that. My family, each loss made a difference. Kevin paused again, thinking it through. You're in debt, aren't you? Me personally, no. My father made sure that all debt fell on him. His businesses are failing, though. I hold my roles to support him and work salvages to feed myself. So you improved your social standing, and that made the people you rose to meet hate you. Then you fell back down, and the people on the level you started at rejected you because you've been higher. Makes you wonder why any of us bothered to try improving our lives at all. That was sad to read, Josh. The talk of money is probably born from your dislike of those in power, but the social standing thing is the important bit. I know my friends weren't fair to you even when you hauled yourself out of the more destructive habits. I also know that your old friends turned on you when you weren't a wild party animal anymore. I had no idea that it left you feeling this hopeless. Sorry I never noticed. As a side note on this, money rarely represents money in dreams, so to apply it to something else here is correct. The usual interpretation is self-worth, but given the nature of this scenario and the need for personal knowledge of the subject, it may well be that a dislike for those in power is correct here. Alex shrugged and started tilting a portable video screen that was still locked down. I don't anymore. Not because of that, though. And why? Because I met Josh. Whether we're excelling or just about surviving makes no difference. We're still together. If we have that, life is more than good enough. You're making this hard. Not intentionally, because you had no idea I was going to do this, but seeing that expressed by part of you, even if it's a loose representation of me as part of you, hammers home that I do matter. That makes it harder to think that I may walk away from you. So it makes it harder to understand why you did what you did. Alex, having said their piece, let the silence sit comfortably while they continued to work, moving from room to room. Eventually, Kevin frowned and said, "That's strange." "What is?" "This is the 5th room we've looked at. I know the first 2'd been cleaned out, but it's just... why haven't we come across any bodies yet? If everyone, or even most people, died, shouldn't we have seen something by now?" Alex crossed their arms. Well, let's assume it was a viral outbreak. Maybe the crew attempted to stem the spread. If someone died, it's possible that they, well, got rid of the body. Like, shot it into space? Exactly. You find bodies floating once in a while. Chances are, even if they shot a few at a time, they'd all be picked up by different people, and nobody would be any the wiser. Well, they could have burned them. Alex continued to work, but noticed Kevin floating in place, watching them. "You okay?" they asked. Kevin ran his hand over his head, his fingers disappearing inside the designer scruff of his hair projection. Very calm about that. Body disposal, I mean. When you've done this long enough, bodies become almost commonplace. Most derelicts have at least one. Kevin shivered. "Not sure I want to reach a point where death doesn't upset me." "Oh, I never said it didn't upset me. Children and animals, they really get me. This place has a no pets rule and was over 18s only, so both should be ruled out. Of course, bodies do turn up in my line of work. It is true, though, children and animals are the hardest to deal with. It's an unfortunate part of the job. I've learned to shut it out, but it's still not nice." Kevin floated over and helped Alex move the nearby bed, freeing a small satchel. "About Foster's rat idea." "If there are rats," Alex replied, carefully skimming over the jewellery in the bag, "they would have had to have snuck in with the supply shipment. Pets I find more upsetting than sneaky food raiders. I think the false positives idea is more likely anyway, though. Plus, you have to remember one thing." "What's that?" "Nobody living knows what happened here. Right now, all we have is guesswork." "That's also true, I guess. For those of us viewing this from the outside, we don't really know what happened, and with how much you're struggling to understand things, you don't really know all of it either, do you? Maybe this will be good for both of us in that regard."